Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien faces around him. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Thousands of creatures from different worlds filled the curved seats that went up and up like a giant bowl. Some looked like walking trees, others like floating jellyfish. Some were just shapes of light that hurt to look at directly. The voting was almost over. Jake knew what the result would be before they even started counting. He had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years, and he had watched the other species grow more and more tired of humans. They called humans too violent, too loud, too different. They said humans asked too many questions and never followed the rules properly. Lisa Carter sat next to him, holding her tablet with shaking hands. She was young, only 25, and this was her first time seeing the council vote on something so important. Her brown eyes were wide with fear as she watched the numbers change on the big screen above them. "Gosh, sir," she whispered, "maybe we should say something. Maybe we can change their minds." Jake shook his head slowly. His gray hair was thin now. His face showed the stress of trying to make peace with aliens who had already decided they didn't want humans around. "It's too late, Lisa. This vote was decided months ago. We're just here to watch them make it official." The other human delegates sat nearby. Commander Rick Hayes was a tall man with dark skin and serious eyes. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat, and Jake could see his hands were tight fists under the table. Dr. Amy Foster was a small woman with red hair who usually smiled a lot, but today her face was pale and worried. Paul Bennett was the trade representative, a friendly man who had spent years trying to make business deals with alien companies. Now he just stared at his hands. The vote counting machine made a soft beeping sound. The numbers stopped moving. Jake looked up at the screen and saw what he had expected to see. 847 votes to exile humanity from the galaxy. 23 votes against and 12 abstentions. Wasn't even close. Chancellor Vexthera stood up at the center of the chamber. She was a Zephyrian, which meant she looked like a tall person made of blue crystal. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but Jake knew the words would be harsh. "The vote is complete," she announced. Her voice carried to every corner of the huge chamber without any microphone. "The human species has been found guilty of being too dangerous for our peaceful galaxy. They have shown again and again that they cannot follow our laws. They fight too much, they ask too many questions, and they refuse to accept the wisdom of older species." Many of the alien delegates nodded their heads or made whatever gestures their species used to show agreement. Jake had seen this before. In smaller meetings, the Valdorians, who looked like giant snakes with arms, swayed back and forth. The constructs, who were robots, flashed their lights in patterns. The Nexari, who were like glowing clouds in glass boxes, grew brighter. Therefore, the Chancellor continued, "Humanity is hereby exiled from galactic space. All human colonies, ships, and citizens must leave our territory within 1 standard galactic year. Any humans found in our space after that time will be arrested and sent to prison planets." The chamber erupted in sounds. Some aliens made noises that sounded like cheering. Others made clicking or buzzing sounds. A few species that had voted against the exile sat quietly, looking sad or angry. Jake stood up slowly. His knees hurt because he was getting old, but he didn't let it show. Lisa quickly gathered their papers and put them in a small bag. The other human delegates stood up too, looking around at all the aliens who were celebrating their exile. "Chancellor Vexthera," Jake said. His voice was calm and steady, even though his heart was beating fast. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I want to say that we understand your decision. We accept it." The chamber became quiet. Many of the aliens looked surprised. They had expected humans to argue, to fight, to make threats. That was what they always said humans did. But Jake just stood there calmly, waiting. "We will leave your space within the time you have given us," Jake continued. "We will take all our people, all our ships, and all our belongings. We will not cause any trouble. Will not ask for more time. We will simply go." Chancellor Vexthera tilted her crystal head. "You ... accept this decision without protest?" "Yes," Jake said simply. You have made your choice. You respect it. The Chancellor looked confused. Behind her, other alien leaders whispered to each other in their strange languages. They had expected humans to be angry, to shout, to demand another vote. They had prepared for arguments and threats. But Jake just stood there, calm and polite. Very well, the Chancellor said finally. The human delegation may leave. Jake nodded politely to the Chancellor, then to the other alien leaders. Lisa, Rick, Amy, and Paul followed him as he walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the quiet chamber as thousands of alien eyes watched them leave. As they walked through the long corridors of the space station, Lisa whispered urgently, "Sir, what about Admiral Brooks? She's waiting for orders." "The fleet is ready to fight if we give the word." Jake kept walking. Corridors were made of some kind of white material that seemed to glow softly. Pictures of famous alien leaders hung on the walls, but no humans were among them. There never had been no fighting, Jake said quietly. "We gave our word. We leave." "But sir," Rick said, his soldier's voice tight with anger, "they can't just throw us out like this. Humans have been part of the galaxy for over 100 years. We've helped them, traded with them, fought beside them against pirates and criminals." "I know," Jake said, "but this is what they want, so this is what they'll get." They reached the docking bay, where their small ship waited. It was a simple transport vessel, nothing like the huge alien ships that filled the station. As they climbed aboard, Jake looked back at the station one last time. Aliens were watching them through the windows, probably making sure they really left. Paul Bennett finally spoke up. "Jake, what do we do now? Where do we go?" Jake settled into the pilots. Seaton started the ship's engines. "We go home, Paul. We tell our people what happened, and then we prepare to leave." "Leave for where?" Amy asked. "The galaxy is huge, but it's all controlled by the Council. Where can we go that they won't follow us?" Jake guided the ship away. From the station, and toward the jump point that would take them back to Earth, through the front window. He could see the galaxy spread out before them, billions of stars twinkling in the darkness. It was beautiful, but it was no longer their home. "There's a lot of space out there," he said quietly, more than they realize. "The galaxy is big, but the universe is bigger." As their ship jumped to hyperspace, Jake thought about the messages he would have to send. Admiral Brooks would be waiting for orders. The colonial governors would want to know what happened. Billions of humans across dozens of worlds need to be told that they were no longer welcome in the only home they had ever known. But Jake wasn't worried. Humans had been exiled before, by their own kind and by nature itself. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. They had left their home planet and spread across the stars. They would survive this too. The aliens thought they were getting rid of a problem, but Jake knew something they didn't. Humans were good at solving problems, especially when they were left alone to do it their own way. The galaxy had voted too. Exile Earth. Soon they would learn what that really meant. Admiral Kelly Brooks stood on the observation deck of the orbital shipyard above Earth. Through the thick glass, she could see the most amazing sight in human history. Dozens of massive ships were being built at the same time, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever created before. The ships looked like floating cities, lights twinkling along their hulls and construction crews working around the clock. "Admiral the Helena is ready for final inspection," said Captain Sam Turner, walking up beside her. He was a short man with black hair and kind eyes, but his voice was serious. And Sam had been Kelly's right-hand man for 10 years, and she trusted him more than anyone else in the fleet. Kelly nodded, but didn't look away from the window. "How many people can she hold?" 2 million, ma'am, plus all their belongings, equipment, and enough supplies for 20 years of travel. The other ARC ships are the same size." 47 ships, Kelly said quietly. 47 chances, too. Keep humanity alive. Below them, Earth looked peaceful and blue, but Kelly knew that in just a few months it would be empty. Every human on the planet was packing up their lives and getting ready to leave the world where their species had been born. It was the biggest move in history, and they only had one chance to get it right. Ma'am, Sam said carefully. Some of the colony governors are asking questions. They want to know why we're taking everything. Food, medicine, tools, I understand. But why are we dismantling entire factories? Why are we taking apart the mining stations and the research labs? Kelly turned to face him. She was a tall woman, with short gray hair and sharp green eyes. I'd been a pilot before becoming an admiral. And she still moved like someone who was used to being in control of fast, dangerous machines. Because we're not coming back, Sam. Ever. When we leave, we're taking all of human civilization with us. Every machine, every computer, every piece of technology we've ever built. We're not leaving anything behind for them to use or study. Looked confused, but why? The council just wants us gone. They don't want our stuff. The council thinks they're solving a problem, Kelly said. They think if they get rid of us, their galaxy will be peaceful and quiet. But they don't understand what they're really doing. They're not just exiling us. They're freeing us. On the surface of Earth, Dr. Amy Foster was working on the most important project of her life. The old research facility in Nevada had been expanded into something that looked like a small city. Thousands of scientists and engineers worked in the underground tunnels, building machines that would change everything. Doctor, the power readings are stable, reported Dr. Alan Price, her assistant. He was a young man with messy brown hair who always looked tired because he had been working 18-hour days for months. We're generating more energy than we've ever produced before. Amy wiped sweat from her forehead. The underground facility was hot because of all the machines running at full power. Good, we'll need every bit of it. How are the satellite installations coming along? All 47,000 units are in place. Every star system that humans have ever visited now has one of our devices hidden somewhere. The aliens won't be able to find them, and they won't know what they do until it's too late. Amy smiled for the first time in weeks. Perfect. When we leave, we're not just taking our people, we're taking our stars too. Across human space, millions of people were saying goodbye to homes they had lived in for generations. On the colony world of New Texas, entire families packed their belongings into crates and loaded them onto transport ships. Children who had never seen Earth watched their parents cry as they looked at their houses one last time, Captain. Linda Shaw commanded one of the transport ships. She was a woman in her 40s with long blonde hair and a voice that made people feel safe. As she helped families board her ship, she could see the fear in their eyes. Captain Shaw said, a little girl with pigtails, "Why do we have to leave?" "I like it here. This is my home." Linda knelt down to talk to the girl at her level. "I know, sweetie. But sometimes we have to leave one home to find a better one. Think of it like an adventure. We're going to see places that no human has ever seen before. Will there be other kids there?" "Lots of other kids. You'll all be explorers together." The girl smiled and ran to catch up with her parents. Linda watched her go, then looked up at the sky. Soon, they would all be up there, floating between the stars with nowhere to go but forward. Back on Earth, the news networks were showing the same images over and over. Long lines of people waiting to board ships. Factories being taken apart, piece by piece. Entire cities being packed up and moved. The reporters all said the same thing. Humanity was leaving the galaxy forever, but they didn't know the whole truth. In secret facilities around the world, teams of scientists were working on projects that would shock the galaxy. They were building weapons that could destroy entire fleets. They were creating machines that could build new worlds from empty space. Most importantly, they were finishing Dr. Foster's device, the one that would let them take the stars themselves. "Energy collectors are ready," Dr. Foster told a meeting of the top scientists. "When we activate them, they'll drain exactly half the power from every star in human space. The aliens will see their suns get dimmer, but they won't understand why. And we'll use that power to travel faster than anything they've ever seen," added Dr. Price. "We'll leave the galaxy entirely and have enough energy to build a new civilization wherever we go." The meeting was held in a small room deep underground. The people there were the smartest humans alive, and they all understood what they were planning. It wasn't just revenge against the aliens who had exiled them. It was a chance to start over, to build something better than anything that had ever existed. "The council thinks they're getting rid of troublemakers," said Dr. Foster. "But they're actually creating their worst nightmare. Humans with unlimited power and no rules to follow. The deadline approached. The pace of work increased. The Ark ships were loaded with everything humanity would need to survive. Families found their new homes in the ship's living areas. Scientists set up their laboratories. Engineers prepared the massive engines that would carry them to the unknown. Admiral Brooks made one last inspection of the fleet. Every ship was ready. Every person was aboard. Every piece of human technology was packed and secured. They had done the impossible. They had moved an entire civilization. Admiral Captain Turner said, "We're receiving the final evacuation ships now. In 6 hours, every human in the galaxy will be aboard our vessels." Kelly nodded. "Good signal. Dr. Foster, tell her we're ready for the final phase." On Earth, Dr. Foster received the message and smiled. She walked to the control room where hundreds of technicians waited at their stations. The machines around them hummed with power, ready to change the galaxy forever. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "it's time to show the galaxy what humans are really capable of. Prepare to activate the stellar collectors." The galaxy thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they were about to learn that humans were much more dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. The Council had voted to exile Earth, and humanity was about to depart in a way that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The countdown began. Soon the stars themselves would follow humanity into the dark. The day had finally come. Admiral Kelly Brooks stood on the bridge of the Helena, watching the last transport ships dock with her massive vessel. Through the windows, she could see the human fleet spread across the solar system like a field of stars. 200 ships of different sizes floated in perfect formation, each one carrying part of humanity's future. "All vessels report ready for departure, Admiral," Captain Sam Turner announced from his station. His voice was steady, but Kelly could hear the emotion underneath. This was the moment they had all been working toward for months. Kelly activated the fleet communication system. Her voice would reach every human ship, every person who had been forced to leave their home. "This is Admiral Brooks to all ships. Today we leave not as prisoners, but as explorers. The galaxy has made its choice, and we accept it. But remember, we are not leaving empty-handed. Carry with us everything that makes us human, our curiosity, our strength, and our refusal to give up." On the transport ship New Horizon, Captain Linda Shaw listened to the Admiral's words while watching her passengers through the ship's cameras. Families sat together in their small cabins. Children pressed against windows to see the stars. People were crying, but others looked excited. They were about to see things no human had ever seen before. "Captain," said her communications officer, "we're receiving a coded message from Earth. Dr. Foster says Project Lighthouse is ready." Linda nodded. She had been waiting for this signal. "Tell all passengers to prepare for departure. We're about to make history." On Earth, Dr. Amy Foster stood in the control room deep underground. The room was filled with hundreds of screens showing star maps, energy readings, and status reports from across human space. Thousands of technicians sat at their stations, ready to begin the most ambitious project in human history. "Final systems check," Dr. Foster called out. Round the room, people began reading numbers and confirming that their equipment was working perfectly. "Stellar collectors are online and ready," reported Dr. Alan Price. "All 47,000 units are responding to our signals." "Energy transfer systems are stable," called another technician. "We can maintain the power drain for as long as needed." "Hyperspace channels are open and locked onto the fleet's position," said a third person. "We can send them the energy of 3,000 stars." Dr. Foster took a deep breath. What they were about to do would change the galaxy forever. But humanity had been given no choice. The Council wanted them gone, so they would go. But they would take their stars with them. "Begin activation sequence," she ordered. Across human space, hidden devices that had been secretly placed over the past year began to activate. They were small, about the size of a car, but they contained technology that could affect entire star systems. The devices had been placed near every star that humans had ever visited, hidden in asteroids or on the dark sides of moons where alien ships would never find them. The devices began to work. Using gravity manipulation technology that humans had developed in secret, they started to drain energy directly from the stars themselves. Not all of it, just exactly half. The stars would still burn, but they would be much dimmer. On the alien world of Zephoria, Chancellor Vexthera was in her office when the reports started coming in. Her crystal body flickered with confusion as she read the messages from across the galaxy. "What do you mean the stars are getting dimmer?" she asked. Her assistant. "Stars don't just change brightness for no reason." "We don't know what's causing it, Chancellor," the assistant replied. "But it's happening in every system that used to be controlled by humans. All 3,247 stars are now giving off exactly half their normal energy." The Chancellor's crystal form began to glow brighter, which happened when Zephyrians were angry or scared. "Contact the Science Council immediately. I want to know what's happening." But the Science Council had no answers. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Stars were supposed to be stable, burning the same way for millions of years. The idea that someone could just steal half their energy was impossible in the human fleet. Admiral Brooks received the signal she had been waiting for. "Energy transfers beginning," came Dr. Foster's voice through the communication system. "All ships, prepare for acceleration." The human fleet began to move. But this wasn't normal space travel. Powered by the energy of 3,000 stars, the ships accelerated faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They didn't just leave human space, it left the galaxy entirely. The alien monitoring stations could hardly believe their sensors. The human fleet was moving at speeds that should have been impossible. They were heading straight for the empty space between galaxies, where no life could survive. "They're committing suicide," said General Zorthik, of the Nexari Defense Force. He was watching the human fleet disappear from his screens. No one can survive in the void between galaxies. They must be desperate. But the humans weren't desperate. They were free. As the fleet reached the edge of the galaxy, they were moving so fast that the stars began to look like lines of light. Captain Shaw watched through the windows of her ship as the galaxy itself became just a bright spiral behind them. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced to her passengers, "we have just become the first humans to leave our galaxy. We are now traveling through the space between stars, powered by the light of our own suns." The children on her ship pressed their faces against the windows, watching the darkness outside. It wasn't empty darkness, though. In the distance, they could see other galaxies, other collections of stars that might hold new worlds and new adventures. Back in the galaxy, the full impact of what had happened was becoming clear. The Galactic Council met in emergency session as reports came in from across their territory. The human departure had caused chaos. "The economic damage is enormous," reported Trade Representative Colton. "Human colonies provided almost 20% of our manufactured goods. Their trade networks connected 47 different star systems. Without them, entire sectors are cut off from each other." "It's worse than that," said Dr. Yolandra, the galaxy's leading scientist. "The humans weren't just traders. They were innovators. They were developing new technologies faster than any other species. Without their competition, our own advancement has stopped." But the worst news came from the military. "Our early warning systems have gone dark," reported General Zorthik. "The humans had monitoring stations in the outer rim that watched for threats from outside the galaxy. We've lost our ability to see what's coming from the void." Chancellor Vexthera stood before the council, her crystal form dim with worry. "We thought we were solving a problem by removing the humans. Instead, we may have created a much bigger one." "What do you mean?" asked one of the council members. "Think about it," the Chancellor said. "We exiled them because we thought they were too dangerous, too advanced, too unpredictable. But if they could steal the energy of 3,000 stars and disappear into the void, what else were they capable of? What other technologies were they hiding from us?" The council chamber fell silent. The same thought was in every mind. They had not exiled a primitive, violent species. They had exiled a civilization that was far more advanced than they had realized. And now that civilization was somewhere in the darkness, building something beyond their understanding. Meanwhile, in the void between galaxies, the human fleet was already beginning to build their new home. Powered by stolen starlight, they were creating something that would make their old civilization look small. They were no longer bound by galactic law or alien prejudice. They were free to become whatever they chose to be. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth. Now they would have to live with the consequences of that choice. 2 years had passed since humanity disappeared into the void between galaxies. The galaxy had tried to return to normal, but normal was no longer possible. The dark patch where human stars once burned brightly was visible from thousands of light years away. Astronomers called it the human void, and it served as a constant reminder of what the Council had done. Chancellor Vexera stood in her office on the capital world, reading reports that made her crystal body flicker with worry. The galaxy was falling apart piece by piece, and there seemed to be nothing anyone could do to stop it. The trade routes are completely broken, her assistant reported. Without human manufacturing, we can't get replacement parts for our ships. The Valdorian Republic says they can't maintain their fleet much longer. What about the constructs? The Chancellor asked. Can't their factories make what we need? They're trying, but human technology was more advanced than we realized. It had been making 90% of our computer chips, and no one else knows how to build them. Our entire communication network is starting to fail. The Chancellor walked to her window and looked out at the city below. Even here, on the most advanced world in the galaxy, the effects of humanity's absence were visible. Streetlights were dimmer because they couldn't get replacement parts. Ships sat grounded at the spaceport because their engines needed human-made components. The galaxy had become dependent on humanity without realizing it. On the military world of Nexus Prime, General Zorthic faced an even worse problem. His defense forces were supposed to protect the galaxy from outside threats, but they were slowly becoming helpless. Sir, we've lost contact with another monitoring station, reported his aide, Captain Rex Mueller. That's the 15th one this month. Our early warning network is almost completely gone. The general studied the star map on his wall. Red marks showed where monitoring stations had gone dark. Most of them were in the outer rim, where humans had built bases to watch the empty space beyond the galaxy. How many stations do we still have working? He asked. Only 12, sir, out of over 300. And those are all close to the galactic core. We're basically blind to anything coming from outside. What about building new stations? Captain Mueller shook his head. Don't have the technology, sir. The humans built those stations using methods we don't understand. We tried to copy their designs, but our versions don't work. The general felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air in his office. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been safe because they could see threats coming from far away. Now they were flying blind through dangerous space. Dr. Yolandra, the galaxy's top scientist, was having similar problems in her laboratory. She stood before a broken piece of human technology, trying to understand how it worked. Her team had been studying human devices for 2 years, but they were no closer to understanding them. The complexity is amazing, she told her research partner, Dr. Mintar. This single device has more advanced circuits than our biggest computers. And it was just a standard tool that humans used every day. How is that possible? Dr. Mintar asked. We always thought humans were primitive compared to us. Wrong, Dr. Yolandra said quietly. Humans were hiding their true capabilities. They let us think we were more advanced while they were actually decades ahead of us in most areas. The two scientists looked at the pile of human devices they had collected. There were thousands of items, from simple tools to complex machines. But without humans to explain how they worked, they were just expensive puzzles. Meanwhile, the economic problems were getting worse every day. Trade Representative Colton sat in his office, surrounded by reports from across the galaxy. Everyone told the same story. Systems failing, trade networks collapsing, entire worlds running out of essential supplies. The food distribution system is breaking down, he told his staff. Human ships carried 60% of our food between star systems. Without them, some worlds are starting to starve. Can we use alien ships instead? Asked one of his aides. We're trying, but human ships were much more efficient. They could carry more cargo using less fuel. Our ships are too small and too slow to handle the same workload. The aide looked worried. How long before we have major food shortages? 6 months? Maybe less. And that's if nothing else goes wrong. But things were going wrong. On the industrial world of Machinus, the largest manufacturing center in the galaxy, the factories were shutting down one by one. The constructs who ran the planet were efficient, but they couldn't work without the right materials. We need 17 different types of rare metals to keep production running, reported Factory Supervisor Unit 7742. Humans provided all of them from their mining operations. Without those materials, we cannot build anything. The factory floor below was nearly empty. Machines that had run continuously for decades sat silent and dark.
Oh.
The workers had been sent home because there was nothing for them to do. In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency meetings had become normal. The same representatives who had voted to exile humanity now faced the consequences of their decision. We made a mistake, admitted Council Member Luakai of the Ethereal Collective. We thought we were removing a dangerous element from our society. Instead, we removed the foundation that held everything together. The humans were the glue, agreed Representative Vashta of the Aquatic Alliance. They connected all of us through trade, technology, and communication. Without them, we're falling apart. Chancellor Vexthera listened to the complaints and accusations. Some council members blamed her for pushing the exile votes. Others blamed themselves for supporting it, but blame wouldn't solve their problems. Question now, she said, is what do we do? We can't bring the humans back. They're gone, probably forever. We have to find a way to survive without them. But how? Asked General Zorthic, who had been invited to address the council. Our military is weakening every day. Our economy is collapsing. Our technology is failing. And we have no idea what threats might be coming from outside the galaxy because we can't see them anymore. The council chamber fell silent. These were supposed to be the wisest beings in the galaxy, but they had no answers. They had created a problem too big for them to solve. Far away in the void between galaxies, humanity was thriving. Admiral Kelly Brooks, now the first president of the Intergalactic Human Federation, stood on the observation deck of New Geneva, a space station the size of a small moon. Through the windows she could see the construction of their new civilization. Hundreds of ships were building new worlds from empty space. Using the energy they had stolen from their old stars, humans were creating habitats that could support millions of people. They were no longer limited by planets or gravity or the laws of galactic society. President Brooks said her aide captain, Sam Turner, the exploration teams have found something interesting. There are signs of ancient civilizations in the nearby void. Some of them might still be active. Kelly nodded. She had expected this. The space between galaxies wasn't empty. It was full of old empires, forgotten species, and things that were better left alone. But humans were explorers by nature. They would learn about their new neighbors, whether those neighbors were friendly or not. What kind of signs? She asked. Energy. Signatures that don't match any known technology. Structures that are bigger than entire star systems. And something else. What? Sam's face was serious. Evidence of battles. Very recent ones. Something is fighting out here and it's moving. Toward our old galaxy. Kelly felt a chill of understanding. The galaxy had exiled humanity, thinking they were removing a threat. But they had actually removed their best defense against the real dangers that lurked in the darkness between stars. 5 years after the exile, the galaxy had learned to live with its problems. Trade routes had been rebuilt, though they were slower and less efficient. New factories had been built, though they couldn't match human quality. The Galactic Council had accepted that life would never be as good as it was before, but at least they had survived. Then the deep space monitors detected something impossible. Captain Rex Mueller was working the night shift at the Outer
Rim detection
Center when his screens lit up with signals unlike anything he had ever seen. The energy readings were so high that his first thought was that the equipment was broken. Chief, you need to see this, he called to his supervisor. I'm getting massive energy signatures from the galactic edge. But the computer says they're impossible. Chief Monitor Talvin, a tall Nexori whose glowing form pulsed with curiosity, floated over to Rex's station. "Show me," Rex pointed at his screen. "These readings suggest ships the size of small moons, all moving toward us from the void. But that can't be right. Nothing that big could move that fast." "Run a diagnostic on the sensors," Talvin ordered. "This must be an error." But the diagnostic showed that everything was working perfectly. The signals were real. Something huge was approaching the galaxy from the darkness between stars. Within hours, every monitoring station in the galaxy was reporting the same thing. Hundreds of massive objects were approaching from multiple directions, all moving faster than anything in their databases. The objects were still months away, but their course was clear. They were heading for the heart of galactic civilization. Chancellor Vexthera called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the Great Chamber, their faces showing fear and confusion. "What are we looking at?" she asked Dr. Yolandra, who had been studying the sensor data. "We don't know," the scientist admitted. "Objects are larger than our biggest space stations, but they're moving like ships. They generate more power than entire star systems, and there are hundreds of them." "Could they be natural phenomena?" asked one council member. "No. They're clearly artificial. Someone built them." General Zorthik stood up from his seat. "I request permission to mobilize the fleet. We need to prepare for the possibility that these objects are hostile." The Chancellor nodded. "Do it. Contact every world in the galaxy. Tell them to prepare their defenses." But even as the order went out, everyone in the chamber knew the truth. Their defenses were weak. Their fleets were small. Objects were enemies. The galaxy might not be able to stop them. Then the messages started arriving. The first transmission came on all frequencies, in every galactic language. The voice was calm and professional, speaking with a slight accent that some of the older council members recognized. "This is President Kelly Brooks of the Intergalactic Human Federation. We are requesting permission to enter galactic space. We have important information to share with the Galactic Council." The council chamber erupted in noise. Aliens whispered to each other in their native languages, their voices full of shock and disbelief. The humans had returned, but they were no longer the same species that had been exiled 5 years ago. "Impossible," whispered Chancellor Vexthera. "The humans left the galaxy. They disappeared into the void."
Oh.
"How could they have built ships like that in such a short time?" The answer came in the second transmission. This time the voice belonged to Ambassador Jake Morrison, the same man who had accepted the exile with such dignity years before. "Council members, we understand your surprise. We are no longer the species you once knew. In the darkness between galaxies, we have learned much about the universe and our place in it. We have encountered civilizations that make our old disputes seem small, and we have discovered threats that endanger all life in this galaxy." The transmission included data that made the council members' blood run cold. Images of vast fleets, of ships that looked like they were made of bone and metal, devouring entire star systems. Records of battles fought in the depths of space, where entire planets were consumed to feed hungry alien swarms. Evidence of an ancient enemy that existed only to destroy and consume. "These are the Devourers," Jake's voice continued. "They are an ancient species that travels between galaxies, consuming all life they find. They have been moving toward this galaxy for thousands of years, and they will arrive within the next 50 years. We have fought them before. We know how to stop them. We cannot do it alone." The council sat in stunned silence. The humans were offering to protect the galaxy that had exiled them. But the price of that protection would be admitting that they had been wrong about humanity. "What do you want from us?" Chancellor Vexthera finally asked. The response came not from Jake, but from a new voice. Admiral Kelly Brooks spoke with the authority of someone who commanded forces beyond imagination. "We want nothing," she said. "We do not ask to rejoin your civilization. We do not seek forgiveness for being different. We have built something greater in the darkness, something that no longer needs your approval. But we offer our protection because it is the right thing to do. The massive human ships took positions around the galaxy's edge, but they made no hostile moves. They simply waited, like guardians watching over something precious. "The Council must vote," the Chancellor announced. "Do we accept human protection, or do we face the coming threat alone?" The debate lasted for days. Some council members argued that accepting help from the exiled humans would be admitting their mistake. Others pointed out that pride was a poor defense against an enemy that could eat stars. In the end, it was the arrival of the first Devourer scout ships that decided the vote. The alien vessels were everything the humans had warned about: massive, hungry, and utterly hostile. They began consuming the outer planets of uninhabited systems. Growing larger and stronger with each meal, the human fleet responded immediately. Ships that dwarfed the largest vessels in the Galactic fleet moved to intercept the Devourers. Battle was brief but decisive. Human weapons, powered by the energy of stolen stars, destroyed the scout ships completely. "This is just the beginning," President Brooks transmitted to the Council. "The main fleet is still years away, but they will come. When they do, you will need allies who understand the threat." The Council's vote was unanimous. They accepted. Human Protection Ambassador Jake Morrison returned to the Council chamber for the first time in 5 years. He looked older, but his eyes held a wisdom that came from seeing the universe beyond the galaxy's borders. When he spoke, it was with the voice of someone who had been humbled by the vastness of space. "5 years ago, you voted to exile Earth," he said. "You believed we were too dangerous, too unpredictable for your peaceful galaxy. You were right. We were dangerous. But not to you." He gestured toward the images of the approaching Devourer fleet. "We were dangerous to things like this. 2 ancient evils that see all life as food. 2 empires that exist only to destroy. You exiled us because we asked too many questions and refused to follow rules. But those are exactly the qualities needed to fight enemies that want to end all. Questions forever." Chancellor Vexthera stood up, her crystal form glowing with something that might have been shame or gratitude. "We were wrong about humanity. We see that now. You left us as exiles, but you return as protectors." Jake nodded. "We are no longer the species you once knew. We've become something new in the darkness between stars. We are the guardians of the light, the watchers in the void. And we will stand between this galaxy and anything that would destroy it." The age of human exile was over. The age of human protection had begun. The Council had voted to send them away. But the universe had sent them back as something far greater than anyone had ever imagined.